Have you created a surname table to help you research your DNA or even your genealogical family lines? If you haven't, then let's create one today. Howdy, I'm Devin Noel Lee, and this is Family History Fanatics. Over on our blog that you can find at blog.familyhistoryfanatics.com, I shared a blog post about creating a surname table for my family. Today's video is sponsored by Medicare Supplements Plus, and as genealogists, we know just how confusing governmental records can be. The Medicare Supplements Plus is here to help you navigate the confusing world of Medicare supplements and plans. Now, Andy and I got to see just how confusing it was to sift through plans and supplemental offers when his parents retired. But that's where Ted and Chet, a father and son team, come in. They help you through their company, Medicare Supplements Plus, find out what is the services that you need most and how to get them. They offer plans for retirees all over the nation, so be sure to give them a call. If you want to go to their website, check out the description below where we will also place the phone number and their email. Now back to the topic. I was inspired by my husband Andy creating this surname table for his family, and I wanted to give it a go to create a surname table for myself. One of our readers said, I don't quite understand how you made that table. So today I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a surname table from scratch. So the first thing you're going to do is to open up a spreadsheet and create a table that is 5 columns wide by 17 rows deep. Now the first row is going to be the title, surname title. You could get creative and say Devin's surname table or whatever you want. So the first row across all 5 columns is the title surname table. Then you're going to go and label the first column the generations of the names that you're going to include. The first row is going to be your grandparents. There's really no need to start with your parents. Go ahead and hop to your grandparents and you will list your 4 surname lines in that row. And then the next row, which is actually going to be another single row, is going to be your first great grandparents, and I'll explain more how that takes place, why there's one more row of names. So then the next group is actually going to be 2 rows combined together. That'll be your second great grandparents. Then the next grouping is going to be your third great grandparents, and there'll be 4 rows for that. And then the remaining rows will be your 4th great grandparents. The last group will be all of the remaining rows grouped together, and that will be your 4th great grandparents. Now, column 2 will be your father's surname line. Column 3 is going to be your father's mother's surnames, all of her surnames. The column 4 is going to be your mother's father's surname list, and then the last column, you guessed it, is going to be your mother's surnames. So let's put that together. Now I'm going to use Family Search in order to point out where the names come from because I really like their fan chart and it helps me grab the names quickly. But you could use any program in order to capture your family names. So these are my parents, these are my grandparents, and I'm going to grab these 4 last names: Geisler, Zumstein, Brown, and Long. Now, Long is actually my grandmother's adopted last name. And whenever you have an adoption, what you want to do is put a mark of some kind. So this is my grandmother. Her adopted last name is Long. I'm not entirely sure what her biological father's last name was and what hers should be. So Long is going to be an asterisk to let me know I really don't need to be looking for Longs. But then you see the Geisler, Zumsteins, and Browns. Back to our table. Now for the next row, the first great grandparents, I don't need to get Geisler, Zumstein, Brown, and then the blank because they're already on my chart. From here on out, I'm just going to add additional surnames that are the maiden names that join into the tree. So Peak, Comfort, Townsend, this is blank because I don't know what it is, and Anderson. Let's see how that looks. So there's Peak, Comfort, Townsend, and Anderson, because these are all the maiden surnames that married this line. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, put a question in the comments below. Now back to the chart, we're going to go to the second great grandparents. Again, I don't need Geisler, Peak, Zumstein, Comfort because they're already on that chart. I'm just going to pick up the additional maiden surnames, which is Hopi, Townley, Snyder, Marr, Gordon, Claybaugh. I have to skip. And then finally, Sparks. So here's that blank. Anytime there's a blank, what that means is I don't know what that surname is. So I will have blanks perpetuated in this line, obviously, because I'm going to have more blanks, being that that biological father's line is not known. We're going to go back one more generation, and in this fan chart, I actually have to move my father's side, the fraternal line, to the center spot in order to pick up these additional last names. So at this point, I won't pick up these last names. So I'm going to grab Mock, Carlsberger, Stone, Sexton, and the rest. And this is what it looks like now. Anytime you have spelling variations and maybe an anglicized name, go ahead and put the two versions of the last name right there. So we have Shafley and Shafley, the two ways that last name is known to be spelled. Now I'm going to move to one more position back on the fan chart, and I will pick up this section of the family. When I get to the Geislers, I can't go back one more generation. I don't know who they are. So now I have a blank. Then I'm going to add Tinople, and then I have Maria, and I don't know what her last name is. Even though I have a first name for Maria, it's going to be blank because I don't know her last name. Because I'm working in Family Search, it is a collaborative tree. And when I started creating my surname table, this King last name is a new to me individual that I know I need to go and research even further. So while I'm creating my surname table, I'm going to go ahead and make a mark that says, yeah, I'm not sure if this is a relative or not, but it's something to put on here to investigate. So if you ever have a last name that's new to you that might actually be a biological relative, then you want to make an indication on your surname table when there's some questions that need further investigation. Let's see what that looks like. As you can see, in this generation, I did not know what the maiden name for the Geisler spouse was. And then I had a Carlsberger, but I didn't know who he married. So her last name, I knew her first name was Maria. And so therefore I went ahead and put a blank here. So you have blanks in the spots that related going around that fan to individuals where you don't know who they are at all, or you don't know what their surname is. Now I can go back to Family Search, move positions on the tree, and then pick up the fourth great grandparents of my father's mother's lines. And again, there's a blank because I don't know what the maiden name of this individual is. And you just can keep hopping around your family tree, adding names and leaving spaces when you don't know what the last names are for the maiden names. And you can see, so I went Anderson, Sparks, Weekly, Simons, and McCartney. So I'm doing pretty good there, but because I have that biological unknown father and some additional families that I don't know what their last names are, that's why there's so many blanks in that place. So what this surname is useful for is if I find matches that I believe to be the Geisler-Zumstein family, I can quickly pull up these surnames and say, do any of these surnames sound familiar to you? And in fact, I did discover someone who is through the Hopi line, the H-O-P-P-E line recently. He said, I really don't know that far back, but when I saw his last name Hopi, I was able to tell him, oh, I know so much about your family. So this surname tree was useful in that family line. But when I'm finding people that match my mother's side of the tree, when they match my aunts and my brother and myself, then I know that it's my mother's side of the tree, and I can share some of the names of the individuals that I have there. It's going to be harder to match people based on those surnames because I have so many blanks, but at least I have a start. Now, if you happen to have a family where they decide to completely change their name from, we're not talking about spelling it Brown without an E to Brown with an E, but we're talking about they take the name Garnett and then it becomes Lee. In the generation that last name changes completely from one to the other, that's when you're going to go ahead and add that additional last name. And then these are all going to be blank because it's just this last name that changed and it applied to that surname. So you could probably put some X's in here to help you remember that you don't need some additional surnames. There was a total change from one last name to something that's completely different. You can go ahead and add those names because from this point onward, we're looking for Garnett, and from this point onward, we're looking for the last name Lee. So if you ever have a name change, that's one of the ways you can handle that. Before we wrap up this video, we want to say thank you to our sponsors, Medicare Supplements Plus. They have been in business for over 20 years, and guess what? Chet is a genealogist who's traced his family lines back to Poland. So when you give him a call, not only can Ted and Chet at Medicare Supplements Plus help you with your Medicare plans, you might also discover that they are your cousin. So, did that help you figure out how to create a surname table for your DNA research? And you can also use it in your genealogical research. I hope it does. If you have any further questions, put them in the comment section below. And if you want to see how we create any other tools, be they for genealogy or for DNA research, make sure you let us know what you would like to see on this channel at info@familyhistoryfanatics.com.